How's it going, everyone? Andy here from 4K Downtime, back at you with another 4K rumor. That's right, this isn't really a news, it's more of a rumor. And boy, is it actually a pretty damn big rumor that even now up my brain I'm trying to process it down. It's like, I'm sure you've already heard of it. It's the rumor of Sony potentially buying Rockstar's, well, not Rockstar's, sorry. Is Sony potentially buying Take-Two? Now, of course, there's no confirmation yet. All of this is just rumors, so please take it with a grain of salt. Now, of course, this news is really big just purely because if Sony bought Take-Two, boy oh boy, are they all of a sudden they will be swimming with a buckload of exclusives. But let's look at this in a more, I guess you could say, I don't know, realistically, just how much sense does it actually make for Sony to acquire them, and will Take-Two actually allow themselves to be bought out like this? Now, the first thing that kind of struck me is I'm not too sure if Sony financially it's actually stable enough to purchase somebody as big as Take-Two. Now, I just wanted to give you guys a little idea. Is back then in 2008, EA actually considered buying Take-Two, and they offered him $2 billion, to buy the company outright. And Take-Two at the time declined them. Now, you can only imagine if Take-Two back then felt you know what, nah, we actually deserve a lot more. How much do you think they will ask if Sony is in talks of buying them? How much do you think Take-Two will actually ask them now? If they thought $2 billion in 2008 was not enough, and now we're in 2019, after GTA 4 has launched, after Red Dead Redemption 2 has launched last year, how much do you think they will ask for Sony now? And I'm not too sure if Sony financially is stable enough to purchase them. Let's just make up, I don't know, an amount now. If they will ask, let's say they ask Sony for, I don't know, 5 or 6 billion, to buy the company outright. I just can't see myself that Sony would go so far and say okay, cool, no problem, we could buy them, because you're making such a huge investment, which you won't see the payoff, I don't know, at least good 2 or 3 years. Because I do believe that the only reason why Sony probably is interested in acquiring Take-Two is simply for Rockstars. Had Take-Two not owned Rockstars, I don't think Sony would have actually cared that much. It's because they have Grand Theft Auto, it's because they have Red Dead and LA Noire and whatnot, so they could see buying Take-Two, primarily wanting it for Rockstars, can be a huge payoff. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the payoff ultimately might end up being worth it, but in the same time, I can't see Take-Two agreeing to this as well yet, just purely because if you look at their games, whether if it's GTA 5 or whether or not if it's Red Dead as well, they have always sold well on other platforms. It's not like Take-Two's games, they make a huge chunk of sales from PlayStation 4, but that's only because obviously the install base for PS4 is a lot bigger than the Xbox One, but they still make a decent amount of their money on other consoles as well. So in that sense, yeah, I kind of felt do you really want to suddenly now make all of your games exclusively to the PlayStation and miss out on all those potential sales? And again, if Sony is willing to pay that much money to acquire Take-Two, then maybe Take-Two could see it being worth it. But in the same time, I kind of felt if this accusation actually happened, I fear that Take-Two probably would have also pissed off a great deal of people, a great deal of I don't know, Xbox fans who probably isn't interested in buying a PlayStation. Although now, of course, if that happens, then they will have no choice but to buy a PlayStation. So in that sense, yeah, I just can't see Take-Two allowing themselves to be bought out. And also financially, it's not like Take-Two is in trouble or anything like that. They make a crap ton of money, so just from Rockstar Games alone. So in that sense, yeah, I just don't see any reason why they would want to be want to be bought out in this case. And I just can't see myself that they would do it, just purely, again, just based on the facts that I could see right now. It's they're financially healthy, they've got probably a lot of games lined up for the next year or two. So it's it just doesn't really make much sense, at least on Take-Two's part. Now, I know obviously Sony is trying to counteract Microsoft, because Microsoft so far, everything that they've been doing, one thing that they have been doing is acquiring a lot of studios. And in that sense, yeah, I could see why Sony will probably want to counteract that, with them acquiring some studios. But acquiring Take-Two just seems a bit too, I don't know, it just seems a bit too much of an investment, at least compared to like, you know, what Microsoft is. Because when Microsoft like acquired things like Ninja Theory, Compulsion Games, and Obsidian, I doubt it cost them like, you know, that much money to acquire them. So even if like, you know, the payoff they don't see the payoff immediately, and like, because I'm pretty sure whatever game that Ninja Theory, for example, is working on is most likely for Microsoft's next console. But that's fine. It's because like, look, we acquired you for this X amount, and we could wait, like, you know, we could actually wait for you to make the game to come out of our next console and everything like that. But if PlayStation was to acquire Take-Two right now, you spend that huge of a money and only to realize that, yeah, I'm not probably going to see this payoff until, I don't know, 2 or 3 years down the line. So like I said, I just don't see the higher ups at Sony will be okay with this. It's just like, what? You're literally asking us to throw away $5 to $6 billion for you to acquire this company, and we won't even see the profit straight away. So, I mean, let's just see, like, you know, what happens. So personally myself, I simply can't picture Sony actually buying Take-Two outright, but one thing I do think is very likely is the fact that Sony probably wants to fund, like, you know, a game probably made by Rockstars to make it exclusive for PS5. So instead of buying them outright, they just said that, look, we want to fund one of your games and we want you to make it exclusive for our platform, which will most likely be the PS5. Now that, in my opinion, makes a lot more sense. To just have them fund a game, like, you know, just for them to develop this one game for us to make it, like, you know, a launch title for PS5 or whatsoever, or a title that launches shortly thereafter, that just seems to make more business sense. Like, yeah, we're not buying your company, but we just wish, like, if we could fund a game for your studio just to make this game exclusive for our platform. I just felt this sounds more logical for Sony to do, rather than like spend a huge sum of money just to acquire Take-Two as a whole. But of course, as always, we just have to see what happens. Anyway guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment and subscribe. This is Andy from 4K Downtime signing off. Have a good one.